Hello and welcome to our video for today's card making tutorial. Today we are going to be playing with the brand new Flowers for Every Season DSP, and it is, let me bring it out of its package here. This is one of those papers that is just absolutely versatile, which I absolutely adore. So for example, on this side, let me flip this over to make it easier. So notice on this side you see the primary colors are the Bumblebee, the Cinnamon Cider, and this Just Jade, three of our new in colors. So notice here we've got a nice kind of combination of just some nice and some repeating patterns, but generally unique here. We've got some that are directional, some that are not, some that are clearly a bit more wintry, right? Some nice stripes. And then on the opposite side, get ready for this, is going to be the other primary in colors here of the Magenta Madness and the Misty Moonlight here. So this extra red here is actually Poppy Parade. So you can see here again, kind of this one has a bit more of a winter feel. Again, this looks more like the holidays, right, with the poinsettias. We've got again kind of a more wintry feel, again with the direction, some nice stripes, right, some roses. Some patterns, as you can tell, are a little busier than others, and then they're just kind of all kind of varying, which is really nice. So today we are going to make a card that does a really good job at highlighting patterned paper, and especially busy patterned paper. So I've made a couple samples and then we'll make another one today. So the first, I had originally picked out this paper right here. It was incredibly busy, and I thought, hey, that looks really great in terms of there's no obvious directionality to it. The problem is, I was like, well, when I put my lines to know where to cut, it'll be kind of hard to see. So I flipped my paper and put my lines exactly where they were. And sure enough, that made it where it wouldn't fit in my corner anymore the way I had wanted it with the right pattern. So I ended up using the back side, which again, still lovely, but has kind of a different effect. So I turned that card into a thank you card. I did a second one here with the sunflowers and the daisies. On the back side here, notice it's just sunflowers. So I could have done the exact same thing here, but in this case, I cut my paper correctly. So let me show you how to do that, and we'll make a third card. And the nice thing too is that if you use one of these pieces of paper, you actually have 3 identical pieces that you make at the end, which means that you can actually easily make 4 cards out of each of the pieces of 6x6 paper from the paper pack. So for today's card, I thought we'd use kind of a paper that's in between. So this one was pretty busy and this one was significantly less so. So I thought this one was kind of a nice in between, still from that same paper pack. And for this one, I would actually highlight this Poppy Parade. And so we're actually going to use Poppy Parade as our ink. Notice here I used Memento Black, and here we used Misty Moonlight. So with this one, I thought, let's try a little bit of something different. So let's go ahead and I'll show you how to create these cards. So first things first. The first thing to note here is that you actually need, you can absolutely eyeball it if you really want to, but because my intention is to make it where I could make 6 of them if I wished, I've actually made it where I am cutting with my scoreboard, with my cutting tool, at about 1.5 inches from each space. So I've actually gone ahead and put a little line here. And so what I'm going to do is with a ruler, so it doesn't need to be anything fancy, I just have a regular ruler. I hold my paper down, line it up, and then here, the trick here is that you'll actually be cutting on the line. So as long as you don't push too hard, it really won't show up. So you can see it here pretty clearly, right? You can see that line. But the point here is that that's on purpose, right? So now let's go ahead. I just turned my paper. I thought it would be easier for me to do rather than lining up the paper again and using my ruler in another direction. I figured we'd just keep it nice and solid. So same thing, line it up at the 1.5 inch mark here and here. Go ahead and just lightly with your pencil, and then you've got your lines to make your 4 cards. So now you will get out your cutting tool, and with your cutting tool all you need to do is line it up with the actual track here. So you set it down. Here's a note here. If you hold your paper down, looks like that's about perfect. If you hold your paper too close, when you try to fold it, you'll realize your hand's in the way. So I recommend you kind of just hold it off to the side, move your hand out of the way, close it, then you can run your paper right through. So then comes the part that might seem like the tougher one. How do you get this one lined up properly? I recommend actually lining it up with one of these lines here and having this line be perpendicular. So now, again, move my fingers out of the way. There we go. Make sure it's in the track for both the top and the bottom, and then cut it through. And the quick and easy way to find out if you did it correctly, do they overlap? Because they should be a near perfect overlap. Maybe not exactly identical, and that's just depending on where you put your line, but they should be pretty close. So then we'll do that with the other piece as well. And you'll notice, close, cut, and now I have 4 identically shaped, slightly different patterns, pieces of paper for each of them. So I can move this out of the way for a minute because I don't need it just right this second. So for my other cards, as you can tell, the paper, because we're using a 6x6, it's not exceptionally large in terms of taking up a lot of space, so you have a fair amount of white space. And because of that, I thought that it would be a little bit not bland, but I feel like it would have been missing a little bit of something if I had taken my card base and just put my paper on there just on its own. It's still incredibly easy to do, and it's definitely going to be a beautiful card nonetheless, but I thought it needed a little bit of something to kind of help those colors pop. So on our card base, we needed it to have kind of a little bit of something else. So I chose, in this case, like I mentioned before, since we're highlighting the Poppy Parade, here's just a piece of paper that I hadn't finished using yet. We're using it in this corner, which means that this corner here has to line up with my cardstock. So I'm going to actually say, all right, yep, this is going to be the corner I'm going to put it in. So I just flip it, apply some Tombow multi-purpose liquid adhesive. Notice here it looks like I'm putting a lot, but I'm actually not. This glue is surprisingly effective with very little in terms of being applied in the first place. So I'll flip my paper, line it up, and then just kind of gently push it down. And now you might be wondering, well, yeah, but how do I put that on my card? So here's the part where if you were the type of person who really likes to measure and have it precise, you absolutely can. For my purposes though, I actually just took this, and in case it helps you, I took this and I tried to continue this line while lining it up with my track mark. So let's go ahead, close that down, bring it down, and notice it made this line here, right? This space looks like it's just under 1/4 inch, a little bit over 1/8 inch or so. So then I go ahead, I'll do the same thing here. Notice I'm actually here, I'll line it up with this one, for example, and notice I'm doing the same kind of thing. I'm trying to get about the same width here, and it looks pretty good. So then I've just got this little scrap. So now I'm done with my cutting tool. So I can take my card base, and normally I'll wait until closer to the end of my card to make sure that I have it ready to go before I fold it. However, because of the nature of this card, you really do want to fold it beforehand, because here's what's going to happen. This right here, if it's not folded where it's actually in the middle, there'll be extra space here, extra white, rather than it being flush to the card. So go ahead. This is just a regular piece of 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. So when you fold it, especially because this is Whisper White thick cardstock, I highly recommend you use your bone folder to kind of help crease that paper so that it does not get, it doesn't essentially like have a mind of its own. So now you have a couple choices. So you can absolutely adhere this down first and then stamp your sentiment here. The difference here is that there are definitely times where some don't feel quite as confident stamping, and so if that's the case, you may want to try your hand at stamping first before you adhere this, so you don't have to make another one of these if you made some kind of an error here that can't be salvaged with little saving tricks. But for the purposes of today, I'm gonna gamble, and worst case, if I mess up, I'll fix it on camera. So same thing again, notice some but not a ton of this, and that's one of the perks of this particular glue, is that it ends up lasting a surprisingly long time as a result. So I'm gonna go ahead and press it down nice and firmly, cap my glue. So for the purposes of this card, so this card I had made into a thank you. This card, I had used this sentiment and made it into a birthday card, so I thought this one might be nice to make it into a congratulations card. So I used this one here, the Peaceful Moments, and one of the reasons I like this one so much is in part because of this font here. We have this mixing of the kind of scripty and the non-so-scripty fonts, and then I like very much what we have here is the combination of like inside and outside sentiments. So here we have the happy birthday, thank you with deepest sympathy, congratulations, and then we have things like thinking of you with all my heart. You shouldn't have, but I'm glad you did, which is what I had put here on the inside of this thank you card, right? Because some of these go really well with those sentiments. So for today, I figured let's do a congratulations card. So we'll do the congratulations, and then let's do this sentiment here, these are the moments we'll look back on with joy. That's nice happy thoughts, right, for a congratulatory card. So we'll just take a regular D block. I'm different than a few demonstrators, I think, in that I actually like having my blocks be off center on purpose. And actually, let's just use a larger one here. I'll just have to be careful not to wiggle and wobble it. So the reason I like these blocks and putting them uneven is because it forces me to line up the text rather than lining up the block, because I don't necessarily trust myself to always have it on the block straight. So that being said, let's go ahead and stamp that on there. So because of all of this white space here, I'm actually thinking, rather than saying congratulations and then these are the moments we'll look back on with joy on the inside, I think I'm actually going to swap them. I'm going to put this sentiment on the outside and the congratulations on the inside. That'll kind of make it a bit more, this will kind of fill in that space a little bit more, and I think that that's going to end up being really nice. So let's go ahead, open up our Poppy Parade, and then because I haven't actually used this one yet, let's go ahead and test it. That looks fantastic. So this grid paper is really nice as a scratch sheet of paper as well, to make sure that you have the right amount of ink where you want it to be. So that looks fantastic to me. Let's go ahead and do the same with our congratulations and here. And the nice thing about this too is that even if I made a stamping error, like I rocked my stamp or something. The really nice thing about the inside of the card, if that's where you mess up, it's a little bit more forgiving because you could always cut out another piece of Whisper White and glue that right on top, and no one would be the wiser. So for this though, I thought I would bring in the 2020-2022 in color enamel dots. These are in all 5 of the current in colors. I've been using some of them, as you can tell. And I thought I would actually tie in this Bumblebee here because I thought that would be really nice in terms of tying in more of the colors to the actual thing. So how I'm adhering them, normally I would use my take your pick tool, but that is going to be, I figured for those of you who are like me, who kind of want to get it done a little quickly sometimes, boop, you can just go ahead and put it under your fingernail if you have it like that. Boop. I'm actually, and here's what I'm doing in terms of the trick here, you just bend the acetate back and then pick it up right here. It's surprisingly adhesive in terms of the actual stickiness, right? So it's not too sticky and it's not too soft. So there's that. Another option could have been this Just Jade from the leaves. That would have been a really nice color scheme as well. So that being said, that is how to make 3 very different cards using this paper here, the Flowers for Every Season DSP, and the stamp set Peaceful Moments, which is incredibly versatile. So if you have any questions or you need any of these materials, please feel free to drop me a line. You will see at the end of this, at the bottom of the video, you'll find all of the materials that you need and my contact information should you need help getting that. If you would like to place an order, I have my hostess code here for the month of June 2020, and that will be good for the rest of this month. And if there's anything I can help you with in terms of clarifying information, I would be happy to do so. Until the next video, bye!